Jimmy Kimmel's suspension has reignited debates about cancel culture, hate speech, and government regulation of expression. But when we ask what should be cancelable, the deeper question is by what standard do we decide? Is it Hollywood's shifting morality, the state's arbitrary hate speech categories, or God's unchanging law? In this episode of Reforming Nerddom, we explore cancel culture through a biblical lens, contrasting secular and theonomic standards for justice, speech, and accountability. Well, hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to the Reforming Nerddom podcast. I am your host for this episode, Jordan Cecile, and I am joined, as has been the case for the last few weeks, by the one and only P. Nate, aka Pastor Nate, aka Nathaniel P. Wright. Nate, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that it's been regularly you and I here. I don't think that the listeners should ignore the reality that Ben lost his first game and took his ball and went home. He hasn't been back since. So,
It's true. Sore loser. I know.
I hate to say it, but Ben is acting like a baby.
That's right. And listeners, this has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Ben being swamped in starting a classical
No.
Christian school. It is entirely
No.
because he
Just
lost.
cannot
That's it.
stand losing us. Actually,
Yeah.
not even me. I came in last in that game, and here I am showing my face.
I know. And
Watching on YouTube.
I know. The belt is in the mail. I'm gonna get the belt, and I'm gonna make sure Ben, of all people now, watches me wear the belt. I'm just gonna wear it to church. Nobody's gonna have, yeah, nobody's gonna have any idea except us. But that's all that matters is that Ben and our listeners
No,
who
there's a
do
good
return to
there's a
church.
good like 4 people who will know.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, very faithful listeners. And actually, you
Very
know what?
faithful 4.
It's still a weird thing for me. I mean, I realize this is still like in the grand scheme of podcasts, like a nothing podcast, but it's really cool. Just I was out with some guys. Actually, it was a Sunday after church, and we were watching football. And one of the guys was like, "Hey, man, I really did appreciate your guys' episode last week talking about Charlie Kirk." And it was like, "Oh, that's nice." I was like, "I appreciated hearing that." It's like that somebody, even one person, would care to listen to what we have to say about something. It was yeah, it was nice to hear, and we
Humbling.
yeah, it is. It is. It's nice. But yeah, so Nate, how I mean last week sucked, I think for everybody. It was not a fun week, but I mean, what's going on in your life right now? Anything worth noting in terms of nerd stuff or just generally?
In terms of nerd stuff, I mean, I'm really looking for I know our schedules haven't aligned, so for our listeners, we really did launch a classical Christian school in September, and our church, is heavily involved in that. I'm teaching a couple classes. Ben is the headmaster. Jordan has been super involved, including not only sending his kids, but sending his wife, who's one of our teachers, teaching the 3-4 class. So things have been busy, but one of the nerdy things that I am doing and still waiting for is our Star Wars Unlimited night. I Ben gave me a bunch of his duplicates, and so I've been building decks like a loser with nobody to play with. So I'm ready. I'm ready for our Star Wars Unlimited night. So that's one thing that I've been doing. The other thing that I've been doing that I'm really excited about that is writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some cool stuff that really was birthed out of reforming nerddom and some conversations with Jordan and Ben and I that we were trying to do jointly together, and it just worked out that I had the most ability in the evenings to just start writing over the summer. And a few worldview youth camps and some of the Ezra teaching stuff were in the evenings. I have a bit more time. So anyway, I've been writing, and I'm not sure when we'd like to kind of announce that stuff, but there's some cool stuff that I think is nerddom related, and there will be some exciting things to announce in the next month or so. So it's good.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. I'm excited for that. I mean, I am privy to those conversations, obviously, and the work that is happening. And listeners, I think you're going to be. We've got some fun stuff that you will enjoy. I feel like I am an absolute charlatan and a sham when it comes to hosting a nerd podcast because for the last like month or oh boy, month and a half, I feel like I've done nothing because we've just been so busy in moving and then getting our house set up. And we just had a few other things like we want to buy a second car. I mean, AKA the Tesla, which listeners still working on, trying to find my deal right now. I'm actually I'm looking at a Model X, which is a little bit more money, but
Of course
it
you are.
has it's a little bit
The
more
dream just
money.
escalates.
No, well, because okay, here again, okay, here we're gonna go. Did Jordan buy a Tesla? We're gonna talk about this real quick. Um, the thing about the Model X that is more appealing than Model S is that it's a six-seater. We have 6 people in our family, and I would be able to then tow our trailer with the Model X, so we wouldn't have to use our van because that's kind of our thing right now. The van does pull the trailer, doesn't do it amazingly, but it does it fine. The Model X can tow up to like twice as much as my van. So then it's like, okay, now we're actually having a vehicle that we can all drive in. So what that it goes 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds? So what? That's not the point.
With the trailer.
But yeah, that's not the point, everybody. It's the fact that it pulls my family and it's
Yeah.
safe.
What a
And
family man you are.
I like to think so. I'm trying to get Mel to see that. I think she just sees 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds or whatever crazy speed it is. It's definitely under 4, and it's like, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. But,
It's not like
so
we'll be
anyway,
doing that, Mel. Come on.
not all the time at least,
Yeah.
you know?
Like,
Like,
very rarely,
come on.
rarely. In the grand scheme of things, hardly ever.
And it will probably not blow up. So, it's yeah. So anyways, I've been doing a lot of, like, research, just trying to find a car because we would really like to get a car. So, like, my evenings right now when I'm not working, which right now is just, like, usually in the evenings, just, like, catching up on work. Stuff is busy with Ezra. My own work stuff is really busy right now. And so then I go to bed and I look at cars and then I pass out. It's like, so I'm listening right now to the Wheel of Time when I'm running and when I'm driving. So I'm trying to work my way through that. I'm not loving it, if I'm being honest. Maybe I've said that already. It doesn't have its hooks in me. It's just kind of okay. I've heard from people say that it's slow and it builds and it does get better. But then I've heard Ben say pretty much read the first 3 books, skip the next like 8, and then pick up 3, which is not overly encouraging. So I just don't know how much I really want to invest in the series. We'll see. But so I'm doing that. But yeah, I've like barely played any video games. I did actually buy a couple things of Lego just because they were such crazy good deals. I just had to do it.
You got
There's
Slave
like
1, right?
I did, and so Brent, if you're listening, Brent Boffman of Boffman Bricks, I've wanted to get the Slave one because I think that was the first one. So for listeners, if you don't know Brent Boffman, listener of the show, we've had him on the show a couple times to discuss Star Wars and Lego. He builds custom Star Wars Lego sets, and I think his first one he ever did was the Slave one. So then when I built his Millennium Falcon and just loved it, I went back and looked, and it's really hard to find the Slave one. It's retired now. It's been retired for a few years. So the one that he based it off of has been retired, and I wanted to do it, but then I went and looked, and it's like $300-400 for this set, depending on where you're looking. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that, and then spend another $100 to $200 on all the extra pieces to customize it to Brent's design. And some guy just for whatever reason was selling it for $100 on Marketplace. I don't know what he was
Beauty.
thinking, and so I went and looked. It's like legit Lego. That's one of the things. If you're ever buying Lego used, just make sure look at the bricks, make sure it has like the Lego thing on it. It had the box, it had the instructions, so it was totally legit. So I did that, and I also bought a Mario Lego set, which is a really cool one. That was another one that was like somebody was just wanted to get rid of it quick, and is like, sweet, and I'll take it from you because anyway. So I've been building a little bit of Lego just for a little bit in the evenings when we're watching the Jays play, but other than that, yeah, Star Wars Unlimited. I got my cards out because when my office is now in the garage, or sorry, like above my garage. It's a detached garage, so it's not part like attached to the house. So I had all my boxes in here for the office where I had a lot of my nerd stuff. I finally went and grabbed those. I brought them inside, and I just now need to actually sit down and build some decks as well. I haven't built my own deck yet with Star Wars Unlimited.
Have you, speaking of nerd stuff and your new space, which is, not looking great around you, but looks like great potential,
Yeah.
do you have within, like, reach, like, can you show what one of our great listeners did for you for your background? Like, can
Oh,
you
I can hold up. Yeah.
I know this isn't great radio for everybody who's listening to the podcast. My
I
apologies, but
so I
I
have
thought we should go.
Yeah, so I have it, on my wall that I was just looking at, but this was made by one of our listeners, Courtney, good friend of the show, and I've known Courtney for a long time. It is made out of those pearl
Those, like,
beads.
iron beads? I don't know what they're
Yeah,
called.
pearl
You put the
beads.
beads on and then you iron them to stick them together. My girls do it all the time, yeah. I
Yeah,
was
and
super impressed when I saw it because 'cause I'm like, "Man, it
oh
looks great,"
yeah,
and I
uh,
can't believe she used those.
yeah, I know. And she did the or she got the background that we have for a lot of the stuff we use that I made. So she got that printed out and then put it on this, framed it.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I've had it up in my office ever since. So just actually a few days ago, here, I'll actually hang that up later. Yeah, I hung it up and I love it. So now I'm just trying to think of other cool ways to nerdify this space because Melissa has said this is my man cave, and I can do with it whatever I want. And so that's gonna be awesome. I'd like to try. I don't know if we can have room for it, but we'll see what we can do. But I would like to have a recording space that's not just my desk, that can actually have
Yeah,
a nice little set,
that'd be sweet.
with some of
Yep.
my, Lego stuff and books on shelf. Anyways, we'll see what I can do there. And I'd love for all three of us to be able to get together because we're actually in the same town now often enough,
Big time, yeah.
right? So
And I mean, the house you sent, Colleen yesterday was, like, as close as we've gotten
I
in
know
terms
it.
of it's good. There's a few things that don't work for our family with it, but,
Yeah,
like, that was the first one that she was like that was within our price range where she was like, "I would move there. I
yeah,
100%." Like and we
yep,
wanna move to into town anyway, but, it's just about finding the house for your family, right? As you know, you guys looked at a bajillion houses there. You gotta find the one that works for your family of 6.
yep. That's
Um,
right.
a lot of new houses aren't built for houses or families of 6. It's like, 3,200 square feet and 2 bedrooms. Like, are you
Yeah,
serious? Like,
yeah. I know,
what family with 1 kid needs 3,200 square feet? This is
I know,
ridiculous.
I know. It is. But
Here we
I
are.
know right when I saw it, it screamed Colleen, but then right when I looked at the floor plan and I saw it only had like the one living room on the main floor, you guys are used to having the two. It's like, that's
That's not even it as much as, like, 1 bathroom upstairs when we
yeah,
have, like, 3 girls who are gonna be teenagers at some point together all living in
yeah,
one roof is sort of
yeah.
that's the harder part.
That's the thing with our place that is definitely going to be interesting is we come from a house that had our two houses ago, we had four bathrooms. The house we just had three, one of them being the ensuite, and
Yeah.
now we don't have an ensuite. And it's not like the end of the world, like we're getting used
Yeah,
to it.
but it's an adjustment.
But yeah, and by the time the girls are a certain age, I'm probably just gonna make my bathroom the downstairs bathroom, just so
Yep.
it's one less person in there. So it's but yeah. Anyways, and just so Colleen knows, I'm not just like scouring realtor for you guys. I just have notifications, and I just keep so right when I see one,
Oh,
it's like yeah.
shower for us. We want that. We want that. That's
You know what?
yeah,
I planned Colleen's trip to Arizona in detail. She can find her own house.
fair enough. I think
Uh,
she's still trying to get you to buy a jet ski for our next vacation, so
she
she's
certainly
she's
reminds
good
me
at
of that.
spending other people's money,
Yes, she
which
is.
I'm thankful for because she
Yeah.
spends other people's money more than she spends ours, so
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm not buying a jet ski, by the way, but I will buy a Tesla, and she
no,
can.
with the
She,
Tesla X in the cart.
yeah, well, she can drive it. I'll let her drive the Tesla. It'll be the closest thing
There
to
you go.
the acceleration of a jet ski. So,
There you go.
all right, well, all right, listeners, the reason for this week's show, the thing that we want to talk about, and it's really um, been quite prominent in the news this week. Obviously, people are still talking about Charlie Kirk, and this is adjacent to Charlie Kirk.
Mhm.
It's involving Charlie Kirk, and that is the firing, or I guess I don't know if they would even call it the firing, the indefinite
Suspension is what
suspension.
it's called
Yeah,
now, yeah.
the indefinite suspension of Jimmy Kimmel of Jimmy Kimmel Live, and this was announced. I think it was this Wednesday. And so here I'll just read from an article here. This is from I guess the Associated Press, AP News, and this was from. It says it was updated on the 17th. So yeah, that'd be Wednesday. But this was written by David Bowder of AP News. It says ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel's late night show indefinitely beginning Wednesday after comments that he made about Charlie Kirk's killing led a group of ABC affiliated stations to say it would not, to say it would not air the show and provoked some ominous comments from top federal regulator. The veteran late night comic made several remarks about the reactions to the conservative activist's assassination last week. At least they're calling it an assassination. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
they are at least calling it that. On Jimmy Kimmel Live Monday and Tuesday nights, including, quote, many in MAGA land are working very hard to capitalize on the murder of Charlie Kirk. ABC, which has aired Kimmel's late night show since 2003, moved swiftly after Nexstar Communications Group said it would pull the show starting Wednesday. Kimmel's comments about Kirk's death are offensive, or quote, are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in international political discourse, end quote, said Andrew Alford, president of Nexstar's broadcasting division. And Nexstar operates 23 ABC affiliates. There was no immediate comment from Kimmel, whose contract is up in May of 2026. ABC statement did not cite a reason for why his show was preempted. Then we see President Donald Trump celebrated ABC's move on social media site Truth Social, writing, okay, first off, does anybody actually use Truth Social? Or is that just like a fake thing?
I
I don't know.
I don't know of anybody who does, but
Okay. That just seems to me like such a, it makes me think of Creed Thoughts, and that's all it is like people built a platform for Donald Trump to post, but nobody's using it, and they just don't have
Trump
the heart to
thought
tell him. Yeah,
geocities.com/
yeah, that's
Trump
it.
thought.
And so then he
It's
said,
dark. It's dark.
yeah, that's right.
Even for the internet.
So quote, Trump said, quote, congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done, end quote. And then earlier in the day, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr called Kimmel's comments, quote, truly sick, and said his agency has a strong case for holding Kimmel, ABC, and network parent Walt Disney Co. accountable for spreading misinformation. See, right there, I feel uncomfortable right away.
Big
I don't
time.
let right when you start saying misinformation, it's like, guys, where have we heard this before? He
Yeah.
said the comic appeared to be making an intentional effort to mislead the public that Kirk's assassin was a right-wing Trump supporter. During his Monday evening monologue, Kimmel suggested Kirk's alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, might have been a pro-Trump Republican. Quote, the MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it, Kimmel said. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving, end quote. So, okay, there's kind of a lot to unpack
Yeah.
even in that. But so Jimmy Kimmel, I think he's a giant douche. I don't like the guy at
Yeah.
all. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Just
have
just to be clear, we are not Jimmy Kimmel fans.
no, the guy. I just watched a clip where, just so somebody refreshed everyone's memory, that Jimmy Kimmel was on a show saying like, oh, if a vaccinated person comes to the hospital, let him in. If a non-vax person comes to the hospital, yeah,
Oh,
see
yeah.
ya, get out of here. It's like this guy was openly, publicly advocating for the death of unvaxxed people. So I have zero pity for this man, for what has happened to him. But that's not really what we want to talk about. Is we want to talk
Yeah.
about, should this have happened, as people like ourselves who are free speech advocates. So Nate, I guess, what's your initial gut reaction when you heard about this?
So, my stance in all of this stuff, I think, I hope, has been consistent, and that is, um, you free speech ought to be protected, and, we ought to get back to sort of the original idea behind free speech where was it Churchill, who said, or was it Benjamin Franklin or somebody? I can't remember who it was who actually said, "I disagree with what you say, sir, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it." Um and we have to get back to that. Free speech has to be either a virtue, a value in our countries that we uphold or not. Our commitment to free speech can't be based on who is speaking and what are they saying. So the problem with this is that, Jimmy Kimmel gets fired and, if you are celebrating that, then your feet are sort of firmly planted in midair if you were decrying all of the people who are getting canceled for their right-wing views. Now, I think there's a slight difference here because I think what Kimmel said was actually super douchey, right? I actually do think, like, we don't know. I've been telling people in our own church. I'm watching people on social media talk about Charlie Kirk isn't really dead. This is a psyop. There's that guy's a patsy and all this kind of stuff. And I do hate that we live in a post-COVID world where for many conspiracy junkies, uh, COVID confirmed all of their worst fears, and so now they're legitimized in all of their conspiratorial ideas. I'm using, the term conspiracy theories. I get it. Like, I understand that that's even the term itself is a bit of a psyop, but my point is I can't stand it when Christians get so caught up in the conspiracy side of things that they can't just mourn Charlie Kirk. They can't mourn what this means for our culture and all this kind of stuff. You have people who are like, "Oh, he was a secret Freemason." It's like, get off of all that stuff, guys. So, all that to say, I think what Kimmel said in terms of painting this guy as a right-wing MAGA supporter, one of our own, I think it's premature for any of this, right? We shouldn't be delving into details right now anyway. And I know people say, "Oh, Christians ought to always seek truth." Yeah, yeah, but truth isn't found on a YouTube channel that, has 10 subscribers that just so sorry, I'm getting off track on
Yeah.
my rant here because 'cause I'm just watching a lot of people on both sides be idiots about this. But what Jimmy Kimmel said was actually, I think, worthy of discipline, right? Because I do think I don't think it's his political views that are just getting him canceled here. I think it's just the very, undiplomatic way in which he handled the assassination of a young father, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, if you're gonna dishonor a guy who just got murdered, and everybody who supports him and make conclusions that haven't even been brought down yet in terms of knowing who did this and what affiliations he had. You're speculating like everybody else. You do have to be a bit more responsible. You have a large audience, you have to be more responsible. So I'm okay if he got fired for that stuff. But the problem is that when you have Donald Trump weighing in, you have everybody weighing in, what we can't do is just we're fine with cancel culture so long as we're the ones in power canceling people. We can't have that mentality. So I just think we have to be careful with this. Um, and I think that, we can there are always gonna be consequences to your actions. You can choose. I think we said this, or I don't think we had a podcast at the time, but, the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, right? He's kneeling during the flag, and he's not getting, re-signed. At the end of the day, you're free to do what you want, but you also have to own the consequences of your actions. So Jimmy Kimmel shouldn't have just been canceled for his political views, but I think what he said was also distasteful, and if that's why he was fired, then fine.
Yeah.
So you gotta face the music, so to speak, but people on the right don't celebrate cancel culture just because it's working for you now.
Yeah, but like, 'cause I've seen people talking about that, and what makes this different than no, sorry, Roseanne Barr and, Gina Carano, like, they were both fired for their opinions, and I think the thing that is different about this is it's not just that, Kimmel said like, I think Charlie Kirk would have been entirely fine if Jimmy Kimmel went on TV and said, "Charlie Kirk is evil, he's spouting hate, he is doing all these things," because that is his opinion. The difference in what Kimmel did was he said things absolutely knowingly inflammatory that would have riled people up and would like with the intention of causing a divide and a rift in a climate that is already very hostile towards one another. Like everything
Well,
about what he said was
and
meant
not
to.
only that, but he was saying, like, things like, everybody's trying to capitalize on his death, right? That's a serious accusation. There's
Yeah.
a bigger difference between I disagree with him. I thought he was a vile person versus, talking about the people who are capitalizing on his death without evidence of it. And then the other thing I do think that was just like, we don't know what this guy was yet. His social media stuff has all been suspended. There's very unreliable reports as to there's some people are saying that he was a trans activist, that there were trans, stuff on the bullets and all that kinda stuff. All that's unverified. We don't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Whereas Jimmy Kimmel's jumping on the other side. "Oh, he was a pro-gun Trump supporter who just, happened to kill Charlie Kirk," and you're like, "Well, that's also unverified." So you can't say that. He didn't say allegedly. He made a proclamation. And as a guy who is, as much as it's from a particular comedy stance, he is a news anchor. So when news anchors say things that are untrue fairly consistently, then there are consequences for that.
Well, and I think what he did was yes, it was not in a court of law, but he bore false witness. Like he bore a false testimony about a thing, and he defamed. So whether you meant to or not, you did. And like that's where
Right.
like a defamation thing is not like, sure, you there's it's worse if you intentionally lie, but it's like what he said was just like patently false. Like it appears anyways, based on what we're seeing and what we're being told. Again, because like who are you and I my level of trust on left, right, center, any media is almost nothing. So it's like we're going based off what one pagan is saying about another in terms of like the things that they're trying to
Yeah.
communicate. It's like so really trust level is pretty low. But from what we've been told, from what even other left-leaning, well, not left-leaning, like hardcore left media outlets, like they have to concede based on what the apparent evidence is that this was not some deranged MAGA guy, which again just isn't like makes no sense. It's completely illogical to even say that that would be the case when Charlie is so pro Trump and pro America to go and be a deranged MAGA guy to go and kill him like that's absurd. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. What I find interesting about this story though, and this is where this is where I think we should kind of focus some of our attention because some of this will be a sort of he said, she said. So I want to like state our position fairly clearly. We are not for cancel culture. People should not be simply canceled because of their opinions. Now, if the station wants to go in a different direction, right? So if like some Fox News anchor was spouting like leftist ideology, he should be fired, but not because he's canceled for his opinions, just because they're like, this isn't the direction we want, right? So like you're always free to have your opinions, but there are still always consequences to your actions. But what we're saying is you shouldn't be in favor of cancel culture just when it benefits you. But what I do find very interesting about this is you have like former President Barack Obama criticized this move, and he actually said that this is government coercion and that it threatens the First Amendment, which is hilarious because I mean, here's a guy like, where were you when where were you when people were getting canceled all over the place in the Me Too movement? You're one of the ones virtue signaling. You're fine with that. And so, like, this is my point, is, like, when we can point out the cognitive dissonance and we can point out the hypocrisy on the left who are now up in arms about this, we can't do the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
But you see many Hollywood figures like Ben Stiller, right? Sykes. There's a bunch of people who have spoken out and basically saying that, they're going to boycott Disney if he's not reinstated and all this kind of stuff. And it's just an interesting thing. Like, again, you saw, I don't know if you remember when Donald Trump in his first presidency got elected. Johnny Depp made a comment from stage about, like, when was the last time an actor, assassinated a president, and it's just
Yep.
like, there have been some very public things said, and it's just like, it's interesting for me to stand back and watch Hollywood kind of unravel in this new world.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so it's just been
Well,
an interesting news
because
cycle.
it is interesting, and because I think one of the things that I actually think is entirely within a company's right is to fire somebody for any reason they want. Like, and that's something that our government overregulates that you can't. You have to have like grounds. Like, no, no, no. Like, if I don't want you working here, this is my company. I should be able to fire you.
Yeah. I
Like,
don't
that's
get
just
along with you.
yeah. Like, there's
You're
just
flirting with my wife.
yeah.
Like,
You're
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it
Like
could be anything.
anything. Like because this is my company, and
That's
so
right.
like even though it was like, and so what really upset people with like Gina Carano, who was fired from Star Wars over her questioning things. I think it was like a Nazi related thing or a Holocaust related thing where she was likening the left to the Nazis. I think it was something like that. Um, like if Disney doesn't want her working there because she holds those views, they are actually entirely within their right and they should be able to do that. But I think what all of this is showing is the power of culture. And when the
Yes.
culture is in a
That's right.
certain direction, because Disney looked and like they literally said, I think where was it? It was one of these articles that I had up here, and it was that Next Star company, and they were essentially saying that the what Jimmy is saying and how he is talking does not align with the markets that we're currently in and trying to reach in our audience. So you're telling me that your audience are likely conservative families who do not, and so, huh, weird. When you have now companies who their bottom line is dependent on people giving them money and watching their stuff, they will create content that aligns with that worldview and that set of ideals and values. Weird. It's almost like that the church should actually want to see culture transformed because then companies will want to align their business efforts with that set of
That's right.
ideals,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, well, think about it this way. If there was, let's just say there was a church in a small town of like 13,000 people or so, and that church had several hundred people who lived in the town. And the church really supported, let's say right down the street was a nice little bakery or something like that that sold great coffee and great pastries and good lunches and breakfasts. And it's like the church supports them like mad, right? People go there, you know, pastors hold meetings there, you know, we support that local business and then, you know, we get the opportunity to say, you know, it'd be really great. Like I can guarantee you that if you guys close down on Sundays, we would make sure that you make it up the rest of the week, right? And that business is like, okay, like these are our customers. They are saying they would appreciate. We can actually, you know, cost of operation close down on an entire day, and they're saying they'll make up the difference for us. Like there's this power that comes with cultural influence that Christians have been so shy, so timid when it comes to power and influence. And I get it, you know, power, influence, they can both be used in the wrong way. But just because they can be used in the wrong way doesn't mean they can't be used in the right way. And I agree with you. Like when we look and we say, oh, Disney is an evil company. It's like, well, yes, but they're also just a greedy company like most companies, and they can be influenced just like anybody else because they what they really do care about is the bottom line. And so when people do, you know, cut the cable, so to speak, and unsubscribe to Disney when they're, you know, openly saying we want trans princesses in our Disney movies from now on, and everybody flocks away from the service, they realize that and they start moving in a different direction, and then people start subscribing again. There really is, like, you do have an opportunity to steer culture with what you invest in.
Yep. No, that's right. And the thing that is troubling and concerning to me right now is seeing, like as you've already said, just the number of conservatives who all of a sudden are now like, sweet, we yield the power. We're the ones who are now going to be able to do this, and like that goes against everything Charlie stood for, right? Like Charlie, I think I was trying to find a quote. Um, yeah, I'm thinking I think this was Charlie. I was trying to find it and I just looked for it quickly. But if free speech means anything, it's the freedom to say things that other people may loathe outside of incitement to violence, free speech. And so like it's and like I just don't know why. And I think what we're seeing though is so many people, we're seeing the whole Christless conservatism though, right? Because like us as Christians, we're secure. So somebody can say something. There's that funny meme that I've seen a number of times where it's like you can say whatever you want. I sing hymns on Sunday that say worse things about me than you ever could. And it's like because we know who we are, we know we're sinners, we know we don't deserve it. Like we know all of that. So what can you say to or about us that is going to make us actually feel worse about ourselves, especially if you're mature and have your identity in Christ and like, okay,
Totally.
whatever pagan. But when you're a Christless conservative, that's like you don't share that. So then all you're doing when you're wanting to then limit, like shut them down, is because you're actually insecure in your views as well. Like you're showing your own set of insecurities, just like the left. Like they don't have answers for these ultimate questions. So then they just have to say, shut up. And now we have Christless conservative as well. And so it's like, I don't want to live in a world that has Christless conservatism as much. Like, yes, it's easier to live in a Christless conservative world, right? Like, I would prefer that over tranny reading or story time and mutilating kids and all that stuff. But it's ultimately still I don't want that. And so
Right.
when we see these right wing conservative people like championing the FCC coming in and being and like threatening other news outlets and other broadcasters. It's like screw that, get out of
Right.
here. Like no government, get out of
Yeah,
here.
that's right. And this is where we really do have to, so One of the things that we've criticized for a long time is the hold that the left pu the leftist, government, civil authorities, progressive, ideology has had on the media, right? We saw this very clearly during COVID. I mean, I don't care any listener who thinks that I'm just blowing smoke here, come at us. Like we
Yeah.
got all kinds of receipts for this. I mean, they were actively suppressing the fact that ivermectin was a miracle drug when it came to curing COVID, so they could push vaccines. They were intentionally suppressing the danger of the vaccines. I mean, list can go on and on. But my point in saying that is that this is something that we realized was not only a problem theologically or ideologically, but this was a very practical harm to people, right? The fact that the news was weaponized by a particular set of political ideologies. So my point in saying that is that the answer is then not marrying the news to the right either. The news has to be separated, right? People always advocate for the separation of church and state, and I think they get their motivations for that wrong. But we also have to advocate for the separation of media and state. And the reason we need to do that is because we have to have a media that can criticize those that are in power. We have to. That's actually a fundamental necessity for a free society if you are unable to criticize those who are in power. So I say that simply to say just because we have a guy that we like who's in power, who's doing things, doesn't mean that they should now be able to determine what is misinformation and what isn't. So you said it when you were reading that article. The second somebody is determining what is misinformation is a problem. Let the news report and honestly, let the free market figure out whether or not, so this is why the government should not be providing bailouts for news companies. This is why in Canada, the federal government should not be providing bailouts for the CBC like it often has, because it marries the two in a very unhealthy way. People will stop trusting news that is wrong. So you don't need the federal government to regulate what is misinformation, because the people will just stop going to news outlets that continue to lie to them. That's so that it's an interesting thing because I think we're very, very quick to not be principled, I guess, is my point. The principle here is we encourage free speech. We reject the idea that the federal or the civil magistrate ought to determine what is or is not misinformation by the media, and we have to be committed to a free market that allows news outlets to succeed or fail based on how they decide to report on the news. And those are the principles. And it doesn't matter which way they lean or what their opinions are. Those principles have to be upheld if we actually want to be principled.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you just said there, I think is probably worth talking about is like what even is hate speech, right? Like and because I don't think like there are definitely categories of speech that are mandated or that come with even like civil consequences. But I mean, as our world defines hate speech, all it is like you said something I don't like. Like that's
100%.
really that's really
Yeah.
all it is. So there is
And
no
so then it's like hate based by what
yeah,
standard is it
exactly.
hate? Like
Exactly. So
who
that's right.
so Charlie Kirk is hateful because he opposes same-sex marriage. But the activists who call him a wicked demon, that's not hate speech, right? So
Yeah.
calling him a radical right-wing, white nationalist, that's not hate speech. But calling somebody else, a trans activist is. So like it's just
Mhm.
there isn't a standard. So yeah, biblically speaking, I think hate speech is a category that should not exist. And here's my general, thought for that is, any crime, anything that should be punished is already a crime. So like if I said, I don't want to go to that Indian store because I don't like Indians. If I said that, that would be a hate speech, but I haven't committed any crime. I might be a crappy person, but that doesn't mean that I've committed a crime. And the moment we give the government the ability to determine what is or is not hate speech means that we are asking the government to weigh in on heart issues, right? So when I say, "Hey, I'm not gonna eat at that restaurant," they determine that's because you have racism in your heart. They're now playing God because they can't actually see my heart. Scripture is very clear that man looks at outward appearance, we judge fruit, but God weighs the heart. The heart is God's issue. So if I kill an Indian and then they determine that it was a hate crime, that shouldn't add anything because I should already be put to death if I murder an Indian in cold blood. So my point is like if it requires punishment, it's already a crime, right? So if I beat somebody up and it's because they're of their ethnicity, well, I should be punished because I beat somebody up and assaulted them, not because there's hatred in my heart. That's between me and God, me and my pastor, me and my Christian community. That's not between me and the federal government. And so there's 2 things going on here. And I've actually seen this on the other side too. I've seen a lot of Christians post. I posted something about Charlie Kirk, about the guy that they caught. And it was interesting because it got flooded, number one, with a bunch of Christians who were like, this is a psyop. He's a Freemason. And like, oh gosh, are we going through this again? But the other group of people who flooded was one guy in particular, and he was like, Christians should forgive this
Mhm.
man. Speaking of Charlie Kirk's, assassin. And it was interesting because 'cause I'm like, "Well, forgive in what way?" Number 1, I don't need to forgive him, he didn't do anything to me. Like,
Mhm.
that's just not Christians have a really blurred understanding of what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is the Christian response to repentance.
Mhm.
Insofar as I understand, he hasn't repented, and he wouldn't repent to me because 'cause I'm not the victim in this crime, right?
Yep.
I'm not the wife, I'm not Charlie Kirk himself, I'm not. So, we have a really skewed understanding, but also, there's nothing incompatible with my view of, salvation, that if he repents and turns to Christ, he will be saved and forgiven by God, but he should still face the death penalty. There's nothing incompatible with
Yeah.
about that in the Christian faith. So, I say that to say, like, Christians are just really messed up in their thinking. So when it comes to speech, we have to understand that biblically speaking, there are blasphemy laws, right? There are things that God's law prohibits us from saying. We can't speak against the Lord God, right? Blasphemy is essentially Rushduni would describe it as treason against the sovereign, right? It's an attack not merely on private piety, but it's actually an attack on the foundation of justice of that society. So he says blasphemy laws protect the sovereign of that nation. So when we have hate speech that protects, minority classes and things like that, it's not blasphemy laws that are protecting the sovereign. It's subjective crimes that are protecting a particular class, which is actually showing partiality, which God's law tells us not to do. So every society will have blasphemy laws, but hate speech is essentially number one, it's inherently humanistic, right? Hate speech laws protect man's feelings rather than God's holiness. Blasphemy laws protect God's holiness. Hate speech protects man's feelings. And oftentimes, the other thing that hate speech does is they criminalize telling the truth, right? Like biblical preaching on sin, repentance, sexuality, right? The exclusivity of Christ. All of those things get criminalized when hate speech is a thing. And of course, they replace the sort of the transcendent law of God with subjective statist loyalties. So we have to be biblical in our categorical thinking.
Mhm.
Hate speech is unbiblical. Blasphemy laws are biblical. They are not the same thing for all of those reasons.
Mhm.
But I think that Christians just don't think long and hard about these things.
Yeah, I mean, and there are some other things that actually do carry consequences, like civilly, like murderous speech, like right, actually inciting violence or threatening somebody with violence, like that is biblically that is part of something that God prohibits.
Yep.
Yeah, and even like cursing your parents, like now that's a little bit deeper than just saying like a 2-year-old yelling at mom, but, like, there's a little bit more complexity to that, but, like, Jesus even affirmed that if you, like, revile your parents, or if can't remember exactly the verse, maybe you know it, he's like, "You actually deserve death." And so, we're not saying that there's actually no place for the government to intervene when there is speech, but it's when speech is contrary to the law of God, and when somebody violates God's law because the state has the sword, yeah, there are times that you actually do deserve death. for that. Like, so we're
And
definitely not saying, yeah, no, go ahead.
yeah, well, another thing that I think maybe some Christians haven't thought long enough and hard enough about is, there's a reason that most of God's law is prohibitive rather than compulsory,
Mm.
right? So, you shall not steal, right? You shall not commit adultery. They're prohibitive as opposed to compulsory. And Jordan Peterson, even though he didn't have a foundation for this is one of the reasons that got him into the hot water was when he was given compulsory speech that you must affirm the pronouns of somebody. He's like, well, that's positive law telling me what I must say. There's a difference between that and prohibitive law, right? So to say that you this is what you must say is far more restrictive than to say this is what you cannot say, because in a world where you say you cannot say this, everything else is on the table. But in a world where it says you must say this, nothing else is on the table because I'm just giving you this one thing that you must do. So God's law I think I saw the stat sometime that 96% of the Old Testament case law is prohibitive in nature as opposed to compulsory in nature. There are very few things God commands that you must do. But interesting, you named like honor of father and mother as a positive command. And, I'm reading Rush Junior's Institutes of Biblical Law with a few guys that I'm training up right now, and, we just read chapter 5 on that particular law, and it's amazing that, embedded in that law is not just the honor of father and mother, but it's actually honoring of God's hierarchy and God's social structure. Essentially, society gets its stability from the reality that this positive command tells us that we are to honor the authority structures that God has weaved into the fabric of the world. But anyway, that'll get me off on a bunny tangent, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just really think like Christians, conservatives, like let's just not automatically do what they did to us. And that's because that's the thing. Like, I'm just, even in light of what I would say is overwhelming evidence to show that the election to get Joe Biden in was entirely rigged. Like, I don't think there's much that our audience would need to be convinced of with regards to that. But the problem now that I see with all these conservatives, it's like I'm not convinced that you wouldn't do that if
right.
right because
Good point.
again when you have this ideal or when ends justifies the yeah the ends just what am I trying to say the ends justifies the means. Well, we're trying to get this evil guy out of here. Like we got to do whatever we can do so that justifies us doing this thing. It's like, well, guys, that's exactly what they do. They just have a different idea of what is evil. And again, like Charlie Kirk, they think he is evil. I think Jimmy Kimmel's evil. Like I think so many of these celebrities are a bunch of death cult, child sacrificing lunatics, and but they think that we're the lunatics. So it's like let's not just do the things that they did because I even saw I don't know who it was. Maybe it was a I don't even want to say who it was. It was just a woman, somebody. It seemed like a prominent person on the left, and she just said, "Just remember, we'll be in power again." And it's like, well, maybe, but if you are, it's like, yeah, like you, we will feel the full force of their wrath if they do, because again, like they've got another well, maybe not 4 years now, 2.5 years or 3 years to rig the next election, right? And like the things that they're just doing right now, and like that Trump is saying, it's just very contrary to what I think people thought he would say. So it is concerning to me, and maybe you and I, Nate, have had many conversations and about many things of conspiracy topics, and I just can't help it in having read 1984, and then I see Trump doing all the things that you'd think that if planted the guy on the like the other side to do it, and he's actually doing their agenda for them. It's like I heard him say something recently. Again, maybe this isn't real, but I thought I saw him comment on this that he'd like to go for a third term. It's like you can't go for a third term. And it's like, so what? You're going to start changing the laws now so you can get a third term? It's like I thought you got pretty upset when they changed laws so that girl, that whoever that woman was, could. Um, it was either him or Judge Kavanaugh where they like passed a new law that allowed for like
Yes.
a burden or the statute of limitations to be removed or something on like a sexual assault case. And it's like, okay, so now we're just talking about changing laws so you can do what you want to do. And it's like, now again, there's certain laws. Sure. Yes. Like get rid of abortion. Yes. Like make it illegal to mutilate a child. Yes. Like make biblical law, but like sure, but it's like that's not the same thing. And so
No.
I think we need to be cautious about what he's doing and what these rhino Christless conservatives are doing because at the end of the day, they like their power, they want their power, and they don't ultimately care about advancing the kingdom. They care about advancing their own agenda.
And so, uh, as we often do, I think one of the things that people appreciate about what we do here on this podcast is that we don't just rant and rave about the problems. Hopefully, we end in a place of hope. And so, I think the hope is that as we look at all of this, what we would say is that um, perhaps there have been some Christians who put too much emphasis on just get the right guy in power and everything will work out. What we will say is let's continue, as we have in this podcast, be thankful for the good things Trump is doing. Let's criticize the bad things that he's doing so that we aren't, just parodying aside and being tribal. But the other thing I would say is that this is the importance of culture. This is why, and you started it, so let's end with it. This is why we are after a transformed culture. Because the only way to bring about lasting change is not just playing tug of war with power politically and overemphasized power politically and seizing more of it to stay in power. Ultimately, the way of true transformation is through cultural transformation, not just political transformation. So we say that simply to emphasize this is why we transform nerd culture, and this is why we ought to transform, sports culture and get people on our side in terms of why trans athletes shouldn't be allowed to compete against biological women and all those kinds of things. Let's change the culture. Let's focus our attention on the culture. That doesn't mean it doesn't have political implications. It does, but an overemphasis on any one sphere within society is inevitably going to make the rest of the spheres more easily manipulated should the power shift.
And I think we should be encouraged, very encouraged, that Disney has literally told us, we will give you what you want if you're just like be vocal enough and don't consume the crap and consume the good stuff. Like they're literally telling us that. Like, so let's just do it. Like, let's make sure that we are only watching the good stuff, not watching the bad stuff, condemning the bads, and like it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And like obviously our hopefulness for the advance of the kingdom, like we know that. We know theologically. It might who knows the timeline and everything, but we certainly know that. So yeah, I think that's important for us to remember. Now before we wrap up, Nate, I'm gonna ask I just kind of did this spur of the moment, but a
I
game.
like spontaneity.
Yeah, yeah, a wrap up game on is it hate speech? And I'm gonna ask you a line from a movie or show or something, and you tell me, is this hate speech?
All right.
All right.
So
Uh,
wait, am I saying like whether or not it would be considered hate speech or whether or not I would condemn it as hate speech? Because the answer is going to be no every time in terms of my own.
yeah, whatever you think is funnier. Let's just do
Okay.
that.
All
Yeah.
right.
So this is from Princess Leia. Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? Could this be could this be considered heightism?
So you know what? Very dear friend of the show, Michael Thiessen, I'm sure, would view this as, prejudice of the deepest order. So, in consolidation with my friend, who is in fact vertically challenged, um, I'm gonna say that was inappropriate, Leah.
All right.
You should be assigned to sensitivity training.
Okay. From one Boromir. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Is he showing disability discrimination about against people who cannot walk?
Well, I mean, I think honestly the problem here is on Mordor's side of things. What have they done to like what has the council at Mordor done to create accessibility?
Yeah.
I mean, what if somebody who was differently abled found the ring and needed to destroy it? But this shows how evil Sauron is. He was hedging his bets that if somebody who was differently abled found the ring, they would not easily be able to access the fires of Mount Doom. So
There you go.
yeah, it's all coming together.
From the one Joker, or sorry, no, no, let's go with this one. Batman, swear to me. Is that religious coercion?
Mm. Well, it's certainly unbiblical. Jesus tells us not to take an oath, hastily. So Batman obviously hasn't read the Sermon on the Mount.
That's right.
So it's no wonder he lives in darkness.
From the Terminator, I'll be back. Is that threatening language?
It's maybe it's even blasphemy. I mean, the last guy who said that, the church has been waiting for quite a while. So
That is
yeah,
true.
I don't know. It depends. What ethnic group was he, referring to? I'll be
Ooh,
back. Like, how threatening,
that's
is
true.
he?
That's true. All right.
Yeah,
Next up is everything the light touches is our kingdom. Is Mufasa making a colonial land claim?
yeah, yep. Most definitely. What I did appreciate though is that he didn't make a land recognition about, the everything the light touches is now our kingdom, but we're grateful for the you know, he didn't make a land acknowledgement claim prior
No,
to, so I
no,
I
he
did
didn't.
appreciate that they didn't culturally appropriate that mess, but, no. It's interesting because I actually often like, there is something about that scene and that, there is, Jordan Peterson does a class actually on the opening scenes of The Lion King and the biblical significance of it. I actually look at that and I'm like, "Man, that's like I want that, up in our bell tower, take the kids of our church up to the bell tower and look around Ingersoll, kids. Everything that you see will one day belong to Christ,
Uh-huh.
both in, jurisdiction and also in, manifested reality."
Yep.
Yeah.
Is reach for the sky is Woody inciting gun violence?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Well, I mean, he is a sheriff. So he is actually using delegated authority. So I'm gonna stick with I'll be on Woody's side with this one because he's as sheriff, as we know in the States, sheriff is actually an elected position. So he was democratically elected to his office. So
O-
I'm with Woody on this one.
Okay. And last but not least, that's what she said.
I mean, in all honesty, if this is it's an interesting point because Steve Carell has actually said that the reason he would never consider an Office, reboot, which is interesting because the paper's coming out. It'll be interesting to see how that,
It is out.
how
It's already out.
is it out? I
Yeah,
I
I haven't
do I
watched it
do
yet.
plan on watching that at some point. I don't have Crave, so I'm unable to watch it right now, but I do plan on watching that at some point. But he's actually said they wouldn't be able to redo it.
Yeah.
Right? You think of, like, Diversity Day
Oh yeah.
and, the Gaydar when on, Oscars coming out and all that kinda stuff, like, they just wouldn't be able to do those things anymore. Now, maybe they could now, but at the time he said this was sort of at the height of cancel culture, and he said they wouldn't be able to do it anymore. So, I think he himself knows that he would be condemned for all the "that's what she said" jokes, but it like, do you remember the episode I think it was actually the one where Oscar comes out or is outed rather, where, where Michael is talking about, like, he's trying to show how, like, sensitive he is, and he's just like, "I love gay people." And, she's like, "What if you were gay?" "Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on." "I think you know, Jan." And that's where it's one of my favorite scenes in all of it. He's like, Could Angela be gay? Could they be having a lesbian affair?"
Yeah.
She's like, "I don't think that's how it works, Michael." Like, that whole thing,
Yeah.
that whole episode was just hilarious,
Yeah.
and
No,
the
no more.
paper will just never compare to it.
No, because it can't. It can't.
No.
Unless yeah. The only reviews I've seen are from places that I don't think they would be like-minded to us, so they said they liked it, so what does that mean? I don't know. I'm
Right.
gonna watch it. I'll watch it at some
Yeah,
point,
oh,
but
yeah, me too, me too.
yeah, so anyways, well, that's all I got. I have some other ones here, but
That was a
those are the
good
gold.
impromptu game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are
I
the
like
good ones. So, anyways, well, listeners, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. I just want to remind everybody that you can subscribe to the show on favorite podcast service or watch on YouTube. You can also join us over at Patreon and check us out on Discord. But until next time, stay nerdy.